Order, order. We start with questions. Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, Joe Morris.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through commercial and subsidised delivery, government is ensuring gigabit-capable connections are available to 99% of UK premises, such as through Project Gigabit by 2032. And this is critical for all UK communities if the public are to take advantage of the opportunities in technology, including the transformational investment announcements made by the Chancellor yesterday in AI for the UK to win the global race for AI and to be at the forefront of quantum computing, by the government pledging to procure them. For everyone in every community across the UK to win, they need to be connected, including in Hexham.
Joe Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday I spoke to my constituent Luca, who spent months campaigning for the investment needed to secure reliable internet and phone connection for his community in the village of Lamley. He's been pushed from pillar to post between private companies, national agencies and local government, and the residents of Lamley continue to live without effective internet connection. Those solutions depend on funding, cooperation, all of which are challenging due to the location and the lack of accountability. So would the Minister meet with myself, with the Conewood Parish Council and with Luca to try and find a way forward for Lamley and other rural communities?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy for that to be arranged with Luca, the Parish Council and my honourable friend, with officials from BD UK to explore the solutions that are possible for his constituents. And the Minister for Digital Economy from the other place will also be holding a surgery for members of this House on the 14th of April, where I think he should go along and discuss these issues with her as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I could reel off countless examples of villages in mid-Buckinghamshire where hard-to-reach areas simply haven't got broadband at all, let alone fibre broadband. Constituents and businesses are tearing their hair out at this position. At what point is the government going to possibly accept that for the millions, if not billions of pounds to reach those hard-to-reach places, it would probably be better to help support them get satellite broadband and other solutions instead, which will get them internet now rather than having to wait years?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy for the honourable gentleman to also meet with BD UK and my honourable friend the Minister from the other place. But he's absolutely right. Where there will continue to be gaps for the very hardest to reach places, there are solutions out there like wireless solutions, fixed wireless access and indeed satellite broadband, which BD UK are examining now.
We now come to the Chair Select Committee, Deb Chiom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Starlink is a US telecoms company owned by a South African American who advocates civil war in the UK. OneWeb is a European satellite telecoms company which is part owned by the UK. Yesterday, the Science Minister told my committee that OneWeb could be used to ensure domestic communications resilience in remote areas. So could the Minister tell me whether our critical rural broadband infrastructure is more dependent on Starlink or OneWeb?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are a shareholder in Eutelsat, of which OneWeb is a part of it, and we'll be examining all of these issues. We've asked for Eutelsat to come forward with proposals in terms of making sure we have that resilience here in the UK, and we want to utilise that shareholding more.
Ellen Morgan.
Mr. Speaker, the rollout of Project Gigabit in North Shropshire has been a failure because Freedom Fibre have handed back their contract with many, many thousands of properties unconnected, and the replacement contract is likely to take many, many more years to deliver gigabit access to thousands of people across my constituency. I'm chair of the Digital Communities APPG, and we've suggested some solutions to that problem. Will the Minister come to one of our meetings and meet with us and understand how critical this is for rural communities?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to ensure the Minister from the other place who deals with this particular issue meets with the APPG, but Project Gigabit is designed to adapt in the event of a contracted supplier no longer being able to complete its planned delivery, utilising a mix of contracts and interventions, and very keen to hear from her the experiences of our constituents.
Emily Darlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Number 2.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, one of the defining impacts of this government is the action we're taking to tackle violence against women and girls. And that means making that which is illegal offline illegal online. Intimate image abuse, a priority offence now. Cyber flashing, a priority offence. Nudification apps, banned. Standing up to Grok, and as a result of that, the spread of intimate deepfakes stopped. And now, Mr. Speaker, non-consensual intimate images taken down within 48 hours as well. We will, of course, continue to engage with both the BBFC and a range of organisations in fulfilling our demands for parity.
Emily Darlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like many colleagues in this House and the other place, I am deeply concerned about the unacceptable regulatory gap that currently exists between online and offline pornography. The public shares this concern. Recent research from BBFC indicates that 64% of pornography users believe that violent pornography contributes to violent sexual behaviour in the real world, and 80% would support new regulation. Does the Secretary of State or does the Minister recognise the clear public demand for online and offline parity, and will he commit to bringing forward legislative measures to ensure that content that would be illegal to supply on our high streets is no longer permitted online?
Mr. Speaker, can I firstly pay tribute to my honourable friend's engagement both in her constituency and on this debate nationally as well. She has been a strong champion for the voices of victims in particular on this question. I entirely agree with her demands for parity. That is exactly the commitment we have made as government as well. We have now set up a cross-government unit to make sure that we're delivering on that plan within 6 months.
Carl Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 50% of boys aged 11 to 13 have already viewed online pornography. Clear, frequent exposure to violent sexual content is damaging young people's minds and their understanding of relationships. Does he agree that alongside engagement with platforms, criminal law must be modernised to ban online extreme pornography?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for that incredibly important point. That is exactly why we have already made a series of legal changes, not least in ensuring that cyber flashing, intimate image abuse are priority offences under the Online Safety Act. We have mandated highly effective age insurance on pornography sites and sites with content harmful to children. We want to go further still where there is clear evidence. We will do so through the national consultation that we've launched as well.
Steve Young. Question number 3, please, Mr. Speaker. Stay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government has already launched 5 AI growth zones, creating 15,000 jobs and unlocking £40 billion of investment in industrial heartlands across the country. The East Midlands AI growth zone, a high-potential bid that's under active consideration, could bring thousands of good jobs to the region, including in Nottinghamshire, unlocking investment, creating opportunities and regenerating the area in partnership with local businesses and universities.
Steve Young.
Mr. Speaker, 14 years of Conservative economic decline saw jobs and opportunity leave places like my constituency of Mansfield, and AI now presents a chance to turn that around. With the government rolling out AI growth zones creating opportunity across the country, how will the Minister ensure this translates to local jobs and skills in left-behind communities?
Well, in the 14 months we've been in government, our AI growth zones have done more to level up the country than members opposite achieved in 14 years. With these zones literally being built in areas that once led the industrial revolution and that will now lead the technological revolution. We're also upskilling 10 million workers with free AI skills, introducing the first dedicated national apprenticeship in practical AI and automation, and delivering our £27 million Tech Local programme to help people from all walks of life move into AI, because we're determined to ensure AI benefits people in Mansfield and every part of the country, and so no one is left behind.
Question number 4, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I'll answer this question and question 9 together. Every child deserves the best possible start in life, and that applies as much to the online world as it does to the real one. We know families everywhere are grappling with the impact of phones and social media. That's why we've launched our national consultation. We've had over 25,000 responses so far. We want to hear from everyone, in particular children and young people themselves. And the consultation is going to be one of the first of its kind to specifically hear from them with a child-friendly design. We also want to make sure the views of children with special educational needs and disabilities and those in care are particularly reached out to.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parents in Gillingham and Raynham strongly back this government's efforts to keep children safe online. Does the Minister agree that repealing the Online Safety Act, as Reform have pledged to do, would recklessly expose our children to online predators and leave them without the protections they deserve, and that any party serious about families must have a credible plan for child online safety, not simply tear one up.
I think a party that wants to repeal the Online Safety Act puts children at risk. They don't stand for British values. They don't stand for the British law. Members on this side of the House do.
Jacob Collier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are strong and differing views across this House and the country on a under-16 social media ban. Indeed, when I've spoken to young people myself, that is one of the things that has come out. And there wasn't a strong feeling in my old school, De Ferrers Academy, about this either. Can she say what engagement she is going to undertake with young people so that decisions about their lives are directly fed into this consultation?
Safe State.
I mean, not for the first time. My honourable friend is spot on. I spoke to young people in my own constituency at Fulhurst School, and they had very different views about this proposal. We really want to hear directly from young people themselves. We've already had over 1,700 responses, especially from children. We're partnering with UK Youth and Volunteering Matters to run a series of 7 youth-led events across England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. And we're also going to pilot some of the other potential interventions like overnight curfews and daily screen time limits, working with children and parents to see what works in practice and its impact on family life.
Sir Julian Lewis.
I hope this is a helpful suggestion to the Minister. There have been some objections to a social media ban for young people based on the fact that this would create a cliff edge whereby they had no involvement with it and then total involvement with it. But does she agree with me that one way of minimising that danger is that children should be encouraged to use the internet, which is not interactive, but will gradually acclimatise them for the day when they then are able to use interactive services more safely?
Safe State.
The Right Honourable Gentleman is always helpful in well, not always, but on this occasion, he's been very helpful. That cliff edge argument has been made to me personally by the NSPCC, the Molly Rose Foundation, the Internet Watch Foundation and others, and I think it's one we should take seriously. I've spoken to schools in my own constituency about how best to handle that if we were to go ahead with the ban. I think it's a really important point about the education and awareness young people have, because life is online now and we have to prepare children for the future. That is really at the heart of the issues we're debating in this consultation.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently visited Litchett Minster School and QE School, and I held a session of asking the young people what their view was. And overwhelmingly, those children in sixth form supported a ban. Those children in the younger part of the school did not. How is the government going to tailor the questions for younger children and older children so that we get a really true understanding of the problem?
You'll have been all over it.
Well, I would love it if the Honourable Lady would send me a report or notes from that, because alongside the consultation that is specifically designed for children and young people, many of us in this House are talking to schools, and I would say to everybody, do send those views in, and I promise I will read them all.
Adam Thompson.
Number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
I am very proud that this Labour government has put the biggest investment into research and development of any government ever, with a record £38 billion for UKRI, including £14 billion for curiosity-led research. This week, we announced our ambitious plan to buy usable, large-scale quantum computers by the early 2030s, backed by £2 billion of funding, a world first, backing our world-leading quantum sector, because we're determined to do everything to back our brilliant British scientists, innovators and entrepreneurs.
Adam Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Secretary of State for her answer, and despite the massive government increases in funding generally, in a recent meeting of the SIT Select Committee, we heard how the Science and Technology Facilities Council STFC is currently dealing with a significant reduction in funding, particularly in particle physics, astronomy and nuclear physics. While Michelle Doherty, the executive chair of STFC, placed the blame squarely on decisions made prior to her arrival and explained her efforts to sort out the mess, it's the scientific community, research professionals and UK science that's going to feel the brunt of this funding crunch. What's the Secretary of State doing then to ensure that UK science is not damaged by STFC's historical failings?
So I know that there are a lot of concerns raised by the physics community about this issue. I would say that actually the STFC's budget is flat over the spending review, but as the executive chair says, there have been overspends in their budget over the past 5 years or so, overspends that have had to be met from elsewhere in UKRI's budget, meaning other things haven't been funded as a result. So STFC and UKRI are looking at how to get the balance right between their different projects. They and our Minister for Science and Research will be engaging closely with the physics community over the coming months to make sure we get this right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent George works for the Science and Technology Facilities Council. He has highlighted to me that UK research and innovation is developing a model which significantly reduces spending for all areas of science under the STFC's remit, including quantum science, particle, astro and theoretical physics. Given that the STFC have already warned staff of potential job losses and run a voluntary exit scheme last year, can the Minister reassure the research community, including my constituent from Chorley Wood, by confirming the STFC science facilities and national labs have the necessary funding and will continue commissioning excellent research in years to come?
Well, I would like to reassure his constituents in Chorley Wood, a place I know well, and right across the country, that this government has given actually the biggest ever funding settlement for science. And the STFC's budget is not being cut. It's slightly rising, but it's actually flat over the course of the SR because of the impact of inflation. I think within that context, it's right to ask STFC and UKRI together to get those budgets under control. Experts will be helping to make sure that we prioritise the most important research, and I would say we strongly back curiosity-led research, especially in physics. It's so important for the foundation of our economy and society, but we need to sort this problem out.
Shadow Minister Dr Ben Spence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Modern warfare is technological warfare, so UK research and innovation is critical for our defence. When she has spoken with the Secretary of State for Defence about the Defence Investment Plan, and I assume that she has, which sectors has she prioritised for investment in UK companies and R&Ds? Is it drones, space, cyber, chips? Could she spell out her vision of the role of UK tech in defence, if she has one?
Well, as the former head of MI6 has repeatedly said, the single biggest thing that we could do to strengthen our defence and our national security is to invest in research and development. And UKRI has had the biggest funding settlement from any government ever under this Labour government. Members opposite want to slash UKRI's budget by £6 billion. That would wipe out all our funding for AI, advanced manufacturing, life sciences and much more. We're backing our defence sector with 10% of their equipment budget going on backing UK businesses. The Tories would slash the funding on which they depend.
Victoria College Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Funding for UK research innovation will continue to be undermined if the government's own procurement strategy sees billions going to companies outside the UK like US Palantir, where British tech have the solutions. Although we welcome the announcement of AI investment funding, that pales in comparison to the ongoing procurement investment. So will the government back the Liberal Democrat amendments on a comprehensive digital sovereign strategy, backing British tech, research and innovation, which is really vital for our economy, but also our national security?
I am very proud of this government's plan to back UK AI companies and our sovereign capabilities. £500 million in our new sovereign AI unit. £1 billion of free compute for British researchers and scientists, and overhauling government procurement so that we back innovative tech companies in the UK, big and small. That is the way forward to seize the opportunities for growth, but also secure our sovereign capabilities.
Come to topicals, Kirith Embassy.
Number one, please, Mr. Speaker.
So stay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No woman or child should live in fear of having their image sexually manipulated by technology. That is why, in the last 6 months, we've made intimate image abuse and cyber flashing priority offences under the OSA. We've criminalised the creation of non-consensual sexual deepfakes and mandating those images are taken down within 48 hours. We've introduced an offence banning AI nudification apps, and we stood up to Grok and X. But we know technology moves fast, and as a government, we have to keep up. So where we need to go further, we will.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst I am proud of the steps our government has taken to advance online safety, we are merely playing catch-up. What more is the government doing to ensure we keep pace with the reality facing women and girls, and how will it address emerging technologies like AI smart glasses, which are operating without scrutiny?
I thank my honourable friend for this question. One of my reflections in this job is that it took 8 years for the Online Safety Act to come in, and it's still yet to be fully implemented. We need to move faster. MPs discuss a finance bill every year. Technology moves incredibly fast, so I am always prepared to take further action where I need to.
Shadow Minister Peter Fortune.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm asking this question on behalf of my honourable friend, the Shadow Secretary of State, who can't be here today, but she wants the House to know how important this issue is to her. Mr. Speaker, the Lobular Moonshot project is a plan to fund critical research into lobular breast cancer. It's a disease often missed by screening and with no targeted treatment. 463 members of this House, including the Leader of the Opposition, support this plan. The Health Secretary says there's no political disagreement on this, and yet nothing has materially happened. His department now says it's for DCIT and the UKRI to comment on budget allocations and spending research priorities. So I ask the Secretary of State, is the Moonshot project a research priority for her, as it is for 463 of her parliamentary colleagues?
Secretary of State.
Anything that deeply affects the lives of thousands of people is a priority for me. I am more than happy to work with the honourable gentleman and others to try and reach a resolution here. My understanding is we've got to get the quality of bids right, but I would, of course, be happy to meet to discuss this further.
Bid Fortune.
I would like to thank the Secretary of State for that response. She should know that on the 22nd of April, vigils will be held across Westminster for the 22 women diagnosed with this insidious disease every day. So I thank the Secretary of State for that commitment to work with the Health Secretary between now and then so that we can highlight this issue. Will she agree to come back to the House and update us on the comments and discussions that she's had with the Secretary of State for Health?
So State.
Yes, because I always believe in action, not just words.
Lord McKee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Britain has a world-leading creative sector and an AI economy second only to the US and China. So can the Secretary of State tell me how she's promoting and protecting both industries?
So State.
This government is determined to protect the UK's position as a world-leading creative powerhouse and unlock the extraordinary potential of AI to grow the economy, improve British lives. Today, we've published a report and impact assessment fulfilling the commitments made in the Data Act. We've listened to the views about our initial consultation and confirmed that the government no longer has a preferred option. We've also set out where we will do more work with our creative and AI sectors, including on digital replicas, labelling, AI-generated content, creator control and transparency, and support for our brilliant small and independent creatives. Every country is grappling with this issue, and we are determined to get this right. So both these vital sectors can continue to flourish and thrive and lead the world.
Sir Edward Lee, Father House.
Will the Secretary of State commend the new nuclear fusion site at West Burton, just 2 miles from the town of Gainsborough, which potentially will unleash unlimited green energy, meanwhile hundreds of millions of pounds of investment and thousands of jobs. Will she confirm that when it comes to science and innovation, this country is not broken, it leads the world?
Minister.
Well, can I, Mr. Speaker, affirm the importance of the project that the honourable gentleman is talking about. In particular, this government is backing the future of nuclear fusion right across the country. I know the site in particular has a huge contribution to make. Construction will be on its way by the end of the decade as well, and R&D tests before it. But at the heart of it, Mr. Speaker, we will be backing the use of AI to further our clean energy goals in fusion and beyond it as well.
Graham Downey.
Mr. Speaker. I met with pupils from Pittingcreef Primary School, Dollar Academy and Queen Anne High School in my constituency to talk about how to keep them safe online. They were very much in favour of some restrictions to make sure they were safe with social media, but very, very cautious of age-based bans. Can I ask the Secretary of State to make sure that the consultation coming forward is very reflective of what young people say and that it fits their daily lives?
Secretary of State.
Yes, we've already had more than 25,000 responses to our consultation, including 1,700 from children and young people themselves. But if he and any other honourable member in this House wants to send the views of their constituents, including young people, I will personally read them myself.
We now come to Prime Minister's questions. Wendy Moore.
Please, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our deepest condolences are with the families and friends of the 2 young people who've died following the outbreak of meningitis B in Kent. Others are seriously ill, and this will be a deeply difficult time for their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, health experts are working to identify close contacts and distribute antibiotics, and will begin a targeted vaccination programme in the coming days. And can I take this opportunity to ask anyone who attended Club Chemistry on March 5th, 6th or 7th to come forward, please, to receive antibiotics? And Mr. Speaker, yesterday President Zelensky addressed parliamentarians. Many people were there, and I had the opportunity to reaffirm to him that no matter other international events, the UK's support for Ukraine will not waver. I also welcome Prime Minister Carney and NATO Secretary-General Rutte to Downing Street for further discussions on international security. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I first of all associate myself with the comments and the condolences made by the Prime Minister regarding those people affected by the meningitis outbreak. New data today shows that nearly 60% of hospices are considering cutting frontline services. In the West Midlands, St Giles Hospice has already reduced beds and reduced staff due to financial pressures. So with services being cut, can the Prime Minister explain why hospices are being told to wait until autumn for the new framework, and will he commit today to proper long-term sustainable funding to secure this vital lifeline for the future?
Prime Minister.
It is important that the funding and the framework is put in place, and we support the work of hospices and doing everything we can to support them.
Dr. Maria Timble.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Caroline from Grenoside told me that since December the cost of her heating oil has nearly tripled from £257 to £700. Local farmers I met last week also raised their concerns that the oil industry has not been properly regulated, disadvantaging off-grid customers. Whilst I welcome the government's £53 million support package that was announced for for rural communities. Will the Prime Minister confirm how disabled people, vulnerable and low-income households can access this support, and how he will improve regulation of oil to bring down the cost of energy bills?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I thank her? My first instinct is always to protect people from the cost of living. The immediate action we've taken in relation to those that heat their homes with oil is the 53 million that we announced this week. That's particularly important for rural communities and, of course, Northern Ireland. But de-escalation in the Middle East is the quickest way to reduce the cost of living. And anyone who advocated for the UK to rush headlong into the offensive without a clear picture of what it meant for our forces, or without thinking through the economic impact for families, should stand up and apologise.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister tried to avoid scrutiny on the Mandelson files by releasing the documents immediately after Prime Minister's questions last week. So let me ask him now. Did the Prime Minister personally speak to Peter Mandelson about his relationship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein before appointing him as our ambassador to Washington?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me start where I must. This was my mistake in making the appointment, and I've apologised to the victims of Epstein. I do so again. The government is complying with the humble address in full, but we are also continuing to support the police in their investigation. The matter of process was looked at by the independent advisor on ministerial standards. It's clear the appointment process wasn't strong enough, and that's why I've already strengthened it. But it was my mistake, Mr. Speaker, and I've apologised for it. She should follow suit and apologise for a gross error of judgment in calling for the UK to join the war in Iran without thinking through the consequences.
Mr. Speaker, I know he doesn't want to talk about the documents he tried to bury last week. He's going to try and talk about anything else, but he's not going to get away with it. I asked him a question he did not answer. We know the Prime Minister was warned about the risk of appointing Peter Mandelson. This is not about the process. He knew that Mandelson stayed in Epstein's house after Epstein had been convicted for child prostitution. He knew that, so I will ask him again. Did he speak to Peter Mandelson about this before the appointment, yes or no?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've already made clear that he was asked questions and gave untruthful replies. The government is complying with the humble address. The process has been set out. The independent advisor has looked at it, and he said, quote, the relevant process for a political appointee was followed. Now, obviously, this is a question of my judgment, but what about her judgment? She wanted to rush into a war with Iran without thinking it through. At the weekend, Mr. Speaker, three weeks in, she said, oh, there isn't a clear plan behind the US strikes in Iran. That's the question she should have asked at the start. The decision to commit the UK to a war is the biggest decision a Prime Minister can take, and she got it completely wrong.
I didn't hear an answer, Mr. Speaker, and he's right. It is about his judgment. He has repeatedly told us that Peter Mandelson lied to him, but he won't tell us if he actually picked up the phone and spoke to Mandelson before appointing him. This doesn't make any sense. The Prime Minister told us on the record, and I quote, I believed the lies he told me. If the Prime Minister didn't speak to him, how can he say he lied to him?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the process is clear. It's been looked at by the independent advisor. And she asked me about the process and judgment on appointments. She appointed the Shadow Justice Secretary. He said last night that Muslims praying in public, including the Mayor of London, practising his faith, are not welcome. He described it as an act of domination, straight from the Islamist playbook. If we're in my team, he'd be gone. It's utterly appalling. She should denounce his comments and she should sack him.
He wants to talk about Justice Secretaries. His Justice Secretary is abolishing jury trials. My Shadow Justice Secretary is defending British values. I know who I would rather have sitting on the front bench next to me, and it's not him.
Prime Minister.
But Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this is important. He does want to talk about anything else except what I'm asking him. 3 times I have asked him if the Prime Minister spoke to Peter Mandelson. 3 times he has refused to answer. We can only assume he did not speak to Peter Mandelson. From the documents published, we know he left the questioning of Mandelson's relationship with a convicted paedophile to 2 of Mandelson's closest friends, one of whom was also friends with a convicted paedophile. Asking those questions should have been his job. Why did he fail to do his duty?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, so her position is that the Shadow Justice Secretary is defending British values when he says Muslims praying together in Trafalgar Square are not welcome. Mr. Speaker, even Tommy Robinson, I can hardly believe I'm saying this, has said today that if the Shadow Justice Secretary had made these hateful comments 2 years ago, the Conservative Party would have kicked him out. Now, Tommy Robinson isn't some sort of moral signpost. He was pointing out how much their party has changed. They're more inclined to his views, and he's right about that. The fact that he's sitting on her front bench shows she's too weak and has got absolutely no judgment.
The Prime Minister wants to talk about my leadership. I'm shocked because his former deputy has just fired the starting gun on the race to replace him. And I'll tell him one thing. She and I both agree that this weak man should be replaced by a strong woman. But I'm not finished, Mr. Speaker. I have too much to say to him. There is still a lot to ask. There is still a lot to ask about the Mandelson files. There's still a lot to ask. The Prime Minister knew that Mandelson had kept up a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The documents released also show he'd been warned about appointing Mandelson. He claims he was lied to. Mandelson had twice been fired for dishonesty. So why did the Prime Minister believe Peter Mandelson over the vetting documents?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she asked about leadership. When I see religious events in Trafalgar Square, when I see Hindus celebrating Diwali, when I see Jews celebrating Hanukkah live, when I see Christians performing the Passion of Christ, or Muslims praying, that shows the great strength of our diverse city and country. I've never heard her party call out anything other than the Muslim events. It's only when Muslims are praying. The only conclusion is the Tory party has got a problem with Muslims.
Can I just say, people say, I am not responsible for the answers. I've just got to say that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a shame he's not responsible for the answers either. The Prime Minister wants us to believe that he is a serious leader, but he doesn't do the work. He outsources the decisions, and when things go wrong, he blames the vetting, he blames the Chief of Staff, he blames the Cabinet Secretary, he blames anyone but himself. This Prime Minister appointed Peter Mandelson, but didn't bother to ask the questions. If he cannot be straight with the House on something as simple as this, why should we believe a word he says about anything?
She talks about doesn't do it. 3 weeks ago, she said we should rush into war. She didn't do the work. She didn't think through the consequences. Committing our military to a war without thinking through the consequences is the gravest mistake a leader of the opposition can ever. And she comes back a week later and says, oops, I got that one wrong. She's utterly irrelevant, and she's got no judgment. This is the leader of the opposition who said I should have empty-chaired the most important NATO summit in years. This is the leader of the opposition who said Greenland is a second-order issue. And this is the leader of the opposition who jumped into a war with Iran without stopping to think. On top of that this week, the failure to condemn and sack...
Order. And I will repeat again, I'm not responsible for the answers, but it's certainly not opposition questions.
Mr. Speaker, add to that the failure to condemn and sack the Shadow Justice Secretary for the poison and division that he spreads. It's turning out to be quite a month for the leader of the opposition, who claims she never makes any mistakes.
Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, please, Claire Hanna.
we've seen this play out before, a US rush to military escalation with no plan for what comes next. We've seen schoolgirls bombed in Iran, whole families killed in Lebanon, chaos in a region already scarred by repression and genocide and economic shocks that hurt the most vulnerable at home. In Irish, there's a phrase, "Ní altar and sin up we go." Have we learned no lessons? People are asking exactly that. How many times do these horrors play out before the lessons are learned? The Prime Minister has said that the US will not be drawn into a wider war. Will he guarantee two things: that that position will hold in the face of mounting pressure from Trump and Netanyahu? And can he guarantee that this House would get a vote before the UK involves in any further conflict?
Prime Minister.
Unlike the Leader of the Opposition, my principles have been clear and unwavering. We will protect our people in the region. We will take action to defend ourselves and our allies, and we will not be drawn into the wider war. I want to see this war end as quickly as possible. Mr. Speaker, the longer it continues, the bigger the impact on the cost of living, and that's where we've intervened to support households with costs of heating oil. The best way forward is a negotiated settlement with Iran giving up any aspirations to develop a nuclear weapon.
Sir Ed Davey, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I join the Prime Minister in offering my condolences to the family and friends of the two young people who've been killed by the meningitis bug in Kent and all those affected by this horrifying outbreak. Mr. Speaker, Britain's independent nuclear deterrent is critical for the defence of our nation and for the whole of Europe. But the current Trident missiles will reach the end of their lives in the 2040s, so we have to make a choice now. Lease new missiles to the United States, accepting whatever terms the President gives us, or build our own here in the United Kingdom. And the Conservatives and Reform say we have to rely on President Trump and the United States because we couldn't possibly do it ourselves. Does the Prime Minister agree with them?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our independent nuclear deterrent protects us every day, and we should never forget how important it is. And it is important that we renew it. We will do that in the best interests of Britain. I mean, he's openly advocating a plan which he doesn't know how much it would cost and how it would work. That isn't the way to deal with our independent nuclear deterrent.
Sir Ed Davey.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised at that response. The French can do it. Does the Prime Minister really think Britain can't? But moving on, Mr. Speaker, a New World investigation into GB News has found hundreds of shocking breaches of the rules of impartiality and accuracy. Yet Ofcom has repeatedly refused to take action. Andrew Neil says, just as Fox basically became the channel of Donald Trump, it is clear they have turned GB News into the Reform channel. Mr. Speaker, we cannot let GB News propaganda turn our great country into their version of Trump's America. Either the government rules aren't fit for purpose, or Ofcom isn't properly enforcing them. Prime Minister, which is it?
Prime Minister.
Well, he's right to raise an important question of free speech and our media. It is a matter for Ofcom, and it's important that we let them deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Violence against women and girls is a global emergency. It's a key concern that we discussed at last week's United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Social media platforms are promoting and profiting off vile online misogyny. It's made its way onto playgrounds, workplaces, relationships, and even our politics, harming women and girls and exploiting young men and boys. In the manosphere, everyone loses.
The Prime Minister undertook to look into it along with the Health Secretary, but I'm afraid that more has been made. Now, I know that the Prime Minister and the government this issue poses to public confidence in mass vaccination marks in this session, and indeed the pain it's caused to ones only doing what their government asked them to do. So with this issue and ensure that his government makes swift progress.
Can I thank him for raising it, acknowledge in relation to this, and actually pay tribute to him and to Kate. We look closely at the rare and tragic cases That will maintain confidence in our health service. Points out today as well. We are committed to those affected to make sure it meets their needs. Month, which will look specific. To reassure him, we'll look at other recommendations very.
National conference last week, it is clear dragging in young people as young as 40 in latest tech to combat this crime, and it's to invoke a kill switch so that mobile phones take more seriously than Apple. Will do this, that the government will
made hundreds of arrests. With her, there's more value to those drive down on this.
Funding for UK and procurement will use digital systems in health politically motivated US
Minister, can I thank of launch a sovereign AI stupidity reference to roll out we're determined to deliver that.
Done 300. Takes us back to the day. Yeah. With Huddersfield. You have to tell me how the
Stronger community health services, like the local innovation centre that he mentions, are at the heart of our 10-year plan to go further. But we would not have come this far already, Mr Speaker, without the decisions made at the budget, which were opposed by all of the parties opposite.
Sir David Davis.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Last week, in the government's attack on jury trials, his own backbenchers said the following: unworkable, unjust, unpopular, unnecessary, wrong in principle, wrong in practice, oppressive, authoritarian, and quite honestly, reactionary. 3,000 of his own lawyers, his own fellow lawyers, said juries have not caused this crisis. And the Prime Minister himself, earlier in his career, said scrapping juries enables wrongful convictions. Now the Institute for Government is saying that they are massively overestimating the savings they're going to make on this. So let's be clear. His backbenchers oppose it, his professional colleagues oppose it, and in a previous life, he opposed it. So why is the Prime Minister forcing through a policy that's unjust in principle, unworkable in practice, and opposed by everyone?
Well, Mr Speaker, we're not abolishing jury trial, and he knows that. I've worked with women and girls who've been victims of sexual violence and rape, who have waited a very, very long time for their cases to come to court. Many of them drop out because of the wait. They have described to me personally the mental anguish that they go through when their case can't get heard for years, when they're told of adjournments time and time again. I'm not prepared to look them in the eye any longer and not do something about it. We owe it to them. This is about getting the balance right. We're not abolishing jury trial. There's about 3% of cases go to jury trial, as he very well knows. 97% don't. After this, it'll be 2.25%. That is the difference between the policy we're advancing and the policy as it now is. So it's not abolishing jury trials, but I'm not prepared to see those who've been victims of violence against women and girls, I'm not prepared to see them repeatedly let down. That's what happened for 14 long years. It's not good enough, and I set my face about doing something about it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I spent 20 years as a secondary school teacher in Wales. We worked hard. Labour has given them the biggest upgrade of rights in a generation. Rights that millions of us fought hard to win. But the honourable member for Clacton wants to chuck it all in the bin. Does the Prime Minister stand by these rights and agree that only a vote for Labour in May will enshrine these fundamental workers' rights?
Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of our Employment Rights Act. It delivers strong rights and protections, including for all our brilliant school staff. And reform, he's right, would rip up those protections. They have nothing to offer but grievance and division. And, Mr. Speaker, they have no judgment, because just like the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Clacton said we should do all we